come once again to discuss things.
Hi everyone, welcome to another episode of Geeky Gentlemen. I am Sid Partu. Joining me today is...
A geek for fun.
Indeed. And today we're here to do yet another character discussion because we don't do nearly enough of those. And we're kind of lumping a lot of characters in at once here, Alfie. What are we talking about today?
Today we are talking about something that has over 50 years, coming on 60, of characters to talk about, and we're probably only talking about the last 20 years or so of that, so I immediately apologize. We're going to be talking about Doctor Who companions. What makes a good companion, what makes a bad companion, and who are some standouts.
Okay, and I think that's interesting. You know, I probably should have done this before we started recording, but I need to pull up a list of them, because I've watched a fair number, honestly, of old Who episodes, and I've got actually, I think maybe not as much, but I've got a little bit to say about some of the old ones.
Mm-hmm.
But I don't know. Why don't you start us off some more while I pull this up?
Well, why I wanted to talk about this is I've been recently going through the Big Finish library of audio dramas, because I find they are very helpful in the current writing avenues I've been going through and being able to portray like movement and things just without needing visuals. So I think they're very excellently written, and I've been in a bit of Doctor Who kick since the series came back, but I tried watching the latest episodes. And again, my biggest problem comes down to I just don't like the companions. And I didn't realize until I was watching those and listening to the Big Finish audios how much the companions actually do affect my enjoyment of some stories, which I never really clicked. I've always felt it sometimes, but I always chalked, it's probably just the writing or the Doctor. But specifically, it can be kind of jarring when you have a really good Doctor and a really good story, but like the companion who's meant to be the audience POV just isn't bringing it. It can kind of bring the experience down. But at the same time, if you got a story that's not the best written in the world, but the Doctor and the companion have like the best dynamic, it can enhance those materials. So I think it's a very underrated aspect, while at the same time they are such almost less than sidekicks sometimes. They're very much just there depending on how they're executed in the Watson fashion of having, or how Robin was in his early days, of just giving the Doctor someone to explain stuff to. So I didn't feel really there'd be enough just to talk to about one in particular, because I feel like that would have I'd end up bringing in and comparing other companions anyway, no matter who we talk about.
No, I think that's totally fair. For me, I did always feel, because in watching New Who, I've often been disappointed by how generic a lot of the companions have felt, which has I think been emphasized by the fact that like there's so much importance been put onto most of the main companions. Like, I don't know, maybe that's unfair, because giving characters in your series and stories importance is probably just good writing, but at the same time, it feels a little bit like too much grand importance. Like, we ended last week and I was like, you mean we can't talk about the most important character in the history of Doctor Who, Clara Oswald? And like, she really did become that by the end of her journey, and I'm like, God, it's just exhausting. But at the same time, Rose was fucking God by the end of her series, both literally and figuratively. Donna Noble saved the Doctor's life, for eons to come. Of the New Who companions, I think my favorite is the one who's like done the least or has the least importance, which is Martha. Like, I really liked Martha, and I really did miss when she kind of went away, and I got a kick out of seeing her come back for episodes because, you know, she had what I feel is like what I like the level of importance for a companion, where they're with the Doctor for just long enough that you can like them without getting annoyed by them. And also, they kind of go off and have their own interesting life. And that's what Martha did. She went off and became an agent for UNIT. And I thought that was really cool with her. And, you know, the more I've thought about it, the more important the companion becomes, the less I like them. So, you know, my two favorite companions from the New Who era stuff are Martha and Donna. Oh, what a coincidence! They're with your favorite Doctor. But Donna, like, she does have this big, monumental, important moment, but it's contained within, you know, the one season or the one episode, whatever it is. And she comes back a little bit, but never like in a huge, significant way. And she doesn't get like a cool thing to do necessarily at the end, but she gets like an interesting, tragic ending. But it's only tragic to the Doctor, which is, I don't know, it's just cool. It worked. But when you get to your Claras and your Amy, who's just, Jesus Christ, Amy Pond did a billion things, and it just felt like so, like, I guess I'm trying to, I think that the writing staff got confused on the importance of the companion is not necessarily importance to the story, but importance to the Doctor. Is I feel a place where they misstepped quite a bit.
Yeah, I normally have that with companions, and for the longest time I actually was exactly in your boat. I was just like, just have them be the people he brings on, and then they see all the crazy shit happen. They don't have to be related to the narrative. Just because I got so burnt out on that with Clara specifically. But then I discovered Charlie Pollard, who was the companion of the 8th Doctor in the audio dramas. And holy shit, that's how you write that story. Her whole deal was that she was from the 1930s, and she was on the R-101 airship. And the Doctor brought her along as a companion before it crashed, and she was meant to die. The repercussions of that are just from the act of the Doctor, not her, it's herself being special, just the act of this person died and like a butterfly kind of happens, and the Doctor has to deal with that. While at the same time, she is very much like Martha in that she's can hold her own, but not to the extent where it's just like, why aren't you the Doctor? Sometimes it gets with like especially with freaking Amy. Amy and Rory basically ran that TARDIS for a good period there. Which, I mean, is a fine dynamic, but like at the same time, it's just like it gets a little, he's a Time Lord, you guys are just from Essex. How is this happening? But then at the same time, I feel like the way Charlie's handled is they also do the other thing I don't like, which is the romance. But how it's handled there, I think, is entirely down to the writing and just the 8th Doctor specifically being a little bit more of like the romantic of all the Doctors. I think plays with his character a little bit more from what you get to see of the movie, and then they expand on that to make him a bit more interesting. All of that goes together to make me think that if they ever did try it again, I'd be apprehensive, but I don't think the concept itself is the problem. I think it's very much down to the execution. And what I think might have helped a lot of those problems is that initial conceit that I think Charlie has, that I hope to God they bring back, which is she's not from modern day. You have a time machine. when Clara died the first time and then came back in the Snowman, I was like, oh yeah, this is fun. Yeah, she's gonna be great. And then that version died, and then we just got the modern day version. I'm just like, fuck.
Yep, pretty much that. And that is definitely one of the things. It's like we've just done so many, 2005, 2007, 2009 companions, and it's just exhausting. It just feels unoriginal. And how fun would it be to just have an episode where he picks up someone from the 1700s and goes to just today, and God, an American companion that's living in the age of revolution, or the age of American Reconstruction, as they finalize the Constitution. It just takes him to 2020. That'd be so that is a dystopia, right? They're seeing everything that's going wrong. It's great. There's so much potential there. I do want. That's something I definitely want more. Is more just weird companions, and this is kind of where I want to transition a little bit, at least, and talk about some of the older companions. Because honestly, my absolute unabashed favorite companion from Old Who, even though I've only seen literally one episode with her, Leela.
Oh, damn.
I love the concept. It's so fucking cool. It's the companion's there, so the Doctor has to explain things to them. Okay, cool. Yeah, you could be from anywhere and have that happen. And so they give him a literal cave woman from the future. It's just so fucking weird. I love her as a companion. There's so much potential there. And also, she's a fucking brutal bitch. She's always she's got a knife on her. She's sticking people up, and she's the fucking muscle of the team.
I feel like that's one aspect which that specifically was such a good dynamic with her and the Fourth Doctor, because once you got to have a character who, so often nowadays we make the Doctor the action hero, and we've moved away at that. It's almost like an episode by episode basis. Sometimes he's completely pacifist in every hour from 10, 11 to 12, even 9, and then the other episode right after he's rocking up with blasting people away with a sonic screwdriver. That's something that's been a bit inconsistent, but genuinely we like to keep the Doctor away from that and have him just be the intellectual version. The problem then becomes if you've got an action story, you got to have some way to solve the problem with impetus. Having the companion handle that aspect of things is such a underrated aspect that I feel like the closest we've gotten to is Martha, when she had that bit of training with UNIT, and then when she had to travel around the world with the Master, and we just didn't get to see that for a year, I think it is.
Yep.
And she just becomes a badass during that time. And even Donna kind of had to the extent of that. She was kicking ass. The whole episode when we first reintroduced to Donna, and she's been spending all of this time solving mysteries on her own, hoping to run into the Doctor, and we get to see them both get to the same location at the same time. That's just a brilliant way to justify, oh yeah, she can hold her own, because she solved the mystery too. All of that I really like, rather than having the companion not only solve the role of being told what to do, but then also having to just kind of sit there and be rescued all the time.
Yeah, absolutely. That's the problem when you watch Old Who, is just, I know everybody loves what's her name, Sarah Jane. Everybody loves Sarah Jane. I've watched her episodes, and she's 90% of the time she's just damsel in distress, and it just exhausts me. It's I've tried to watch First Doctor stuff, and Susan's his granddaughter. She's a Time Lord herself. I understand this was before a lot of that lore was established, but goddamn, she is fucking useless. It's exhausting. And to be fair, I've not seen everything. I'm sure someone's going to get in the comments and well, in this episode, Susan flips this switch and that solves the problem, really. But just in the day-to-day, in the moment of it, it's exhausting, and it's such a tired-ass thing. And I get it. I mean, especially for... I guess I'm more willing to excuse it in Old Who, because just... naturally ingrained sexism, stuff like that. It's whatever. I can't do anything about it. I don't have a TARDIS, right? But I don't know. It seems to have also creeped into the modern day, because goddamn, Amy Pond did so little like literally on her own. Like most of the time, she was a damsel in distress, or she was there to tell the doctor, "Hey, don't be too much of a dick, but solve this for me." Is that an unfair assessment of Amy Pond?
Or the same to Rory.
Yeah.
Do I feel like of that pair, Rory kind of carries it. In the same way that I sometimes feel like Mickey carried Rose, is I feel like by having that character there, it helps their brash personality come off as a little bit more real, and sometimes you can get that moments of just like, oh my god, they're just being awful, but at the same time you get that moments of humanity where they are being kind. It makes them feel like more like real people, rather when they're just having like that back and forth with the doctor, which is like, you don't, is it flirting, is it arguing, like how is it going this way? When you have that passive personality around in the TARDIS, I think it can help balance things. There's a sense of calm, and there's a sense of like the straight man rather than just two firecrackers.
No, I absolutely agree with that. I guess I want to ask about this. I know it'd be a pain in the ass probably for the makeup department and stuff, but fuck it, Star Trek did it for years with fucking Worf and shit. And God, the Ferengi, what's his name, and Deep Space Nine. But like, would you like to see just a fully alien companion?
Oh yeah, it's ridiculous that we haven't. My favorite one. Have you ever heard of Frobisher?
No.
So the sixth Doctor has a talking animal companion who's like a shapeshifter, and he normally takes the form of a penguin, and he's got like a detective noir voice, and it's the best thing ever made, and I need it. It is only in audio dramas and comic books, but fuck if that wouldn't get me to rewatch. Like, that was the reason the Sixth Doctor's era started losing ratings, is they didn't just do that. Like, again, weird shit like that just lets you... I understand, like, obviously getting an actual talking penguin is going to completely destroy the budget, but, like, to that extent, right? Like, something that's just weird and out there to justify that the Doctor isn't so... Because I understand that we've established that he's so kind of native to humans, specifically in New Who, is because they reminded him of the Time Lords. But we also have so many other planets that have human species on it that I don't understand why Earth alone has to be the main thing. And I know we've got the audience and stuff, but like, you're not actually filming a documentary here, you are hiring actors. I feel like you can get them to play different time periods, different civilizations, and then full makeup. You probably get some actors who'd prefer that, just because they'd stand out against the mold. Like, one of the things I wish we did, that I'm very annoyed we didn't do, was I was really excited actually when Bill became a Cyberman. I wanted that to kind of just be like, okay, the Doctor's just got a Cyberman as a companion because he's not going to abandon her. Like, I think that could be great for like a couple of episodes.
God, everything with Capaldi just disappointed me.
You think I'm meanie.
I want, like, I like it all in concept but not execution. It's the Zack Snyder of Doctor Who. Now that was meant to just scar you.
Well, I mean, one thing I'll ask you then, because I think this is kind of relevant. How do you feel about that little brief period, or like the implication? Because it's been talked about a few times now. Tennant did it, and Capaldi got the closest. Do you think we'll ever get to the point where the Doctor's just running around with the Master as a companion?
Oh, probably.
As like, serve your penance?
Probably not. I honestly don't think so. Just for the reason that, like, we've never had like a permanently reformed Joker or Lex Luthor kind of thing, you know? I don't think that's gonna happen. It, like, maybe a comic will get to play with the idea, or an audio drama or something. But I think with Missy, that was going to be the closest you'd get to that. Because if they were going to go over that bridge, I feel like they would have done it with Missy.
Sure.
They'd certainly set it up, but I really think that's where they would have gone with it. Let me actually use that a little bit to transition to kind of the other burning question I have about companions. How do you feel, I guess, like, most particularly with Rose, but it's certainly been there kind of since the beginning in subtle ways. How do you feel about the idea of a romance between the Doctor and the companions?
So I kind of talked about this a little bit earlier, but I'm glad you brought it up because it's one of my favorite Doctor Who stories, and it's the only time I've ever seen this done with any modicum of like. I mean, Rose had some good moments here and there between them, but this is the one time I bought it. It's again Eighth Doctor with Charlie, and it was a play called Scherzo, and it's basically set, like, just for context, the universe itself has been imploded and such, as it tends to, and the Doctor and Charlie are now in another universe where there's no light, there is no anything but just hearing and touch, and they just have, and the audio, that's how the audio does the conceit of just like, this is just picturing it, and they just spend time talking. And it really gets into the heart of like, okay, what would it be like for the Doctor to fall in love? Can he? What does that mean? How is that different from human love? What does he go through with those emotions? And it's very real because they don't do. My problem I had with, say, like, Eleven and Clara is it always feels as very. The age gap is so big, even though he looks normal, and he's been through so much and he's so different than everyone. It can very much feel like these poor girls don't know what they're in for. Especially when I don't know, some of the relationships come across very creepily to me when the Doctor's too earnest. Probably my favorite version in New Who is when Amy tries it on the 11th Doctor, who just doesn't know what the fuck's happening. Like, I feel like that's my favorite take.
I mean, she was such a bitch in that. She was supposed to get married, like, the next day, right? And she's sitting there trying to fucking make out with the Doctor. I'm like, we're supposed to like you? People like this character? The fuck?
It's one of those things. But yeah, so, like, Rose, I think, like, you might have more to say on that aspect, so I'll leave that bag of worms in your camp for now. But with Charlie specifically, why I like it is because they make a very good point that the Doctor is purely selfless love. He loves everyone, he loves everything, and to that extent he does love all his companions. They make a very thing that it can be romantic, but at the same time it's much more just like a general love for life and the spirit of good that is so intense and so different for how he perceives the universe, because he can literally see, like, to him a human lifespan is like he's blinked. Like, it is ridiculous how much that affects him, to the point where other Time Lords say that his companions are his memento mori, which are like when people keep skulls on their bookshelves to remind them of death. Is the companions think he's just keeping the Time Lords think he's keeping companions around just to remind him that people can die and that it's mortal, which is a really fucked up way of looking at it, but it's so interesting. But by the end of that story, he debunks it by, like, him and Charlie coming together and admitting that they do have feelings for each other, by saying it is more than that, and he has a deep, like, spiritual connection that is very different than how she loves him. She loves him in much the same way that you see with, like, Rose and Martha and everything, where is that kind of just normal human love. But I like very much the distinction they make in that story specifically, where he has a Time Lord's concept of love, which is so different than anything else.
I mean, that does sound really interesting, and I like playing with that idea too. For me, I do kind of take it on a case-by-case basis. Like, I like that Martha is... I don't know if Martha ever is in love with the Doctor. I think she's attracted to the Doctor, is, I think, a fair
she's like a crush.
Yeah. And the same with Jack. Like, I really like their dynamic. Like, when the line that's always stuck with me is, yeah, it's a perception filter. So you put it on, and just if they're not focusing on you, it's like you're not even there. It's like if someone you really, really fancy, but they have no feelings for you, exactly like that. And Martha goes, oh, And she puts it on, and Jack goes, "You too, huh?" And I just love it. It's so like on point because those characters have so much in common. The Doctor and Jack also have like a there's the attraction there, but it's just he doesn't think of him in that way because he's so used to, like you said, just walking through these people's lives that he doesn't have the ability often to even pick up on emotions like that. Because he's so just off in his own little world half the time. The thing with Rose, 10's my favorite, and so I kind of have to enjoy the dynamic with Rose and the Doctor because it is such a big part of Tennant's era. And like I'll fully admit it has a lot of problems, but then there's also like really, really good moments, like when they're in separate universes and both touching the same wall. I love that. That is just like, wake me up inside.
You don't know how many tribute videos have been made to that song from that era of Doctor Who.
Exactly.
That was perfect timing.
Exactly. Like it's probably more trashy than it needs to be, but I fucking love it. I don't care. Fight me. But like the thing I'll say about Rose, and I'm actually kind of disappointed they brought her back as the super weapon bullshit in Day of the Doctor, because honestly I haven't watched anything with the new Doctor. I really wanted them to wait to bring Rose back until the Doctor was a woman, because that is a fucking interesting story to play with, and just goddamn I want them to do it so badly. I doubt they will. I doubt they've done anything even close to it, but man, it would have been so good for Rose to come back for that story alone. Because, it's... Especially with, like, he just got out of a fucking war. There's so much going on. I can see that, like, he'd kind of feel those emotions and be able to touch into that side of his personality for a brief while with, like, the first person that he starts running around with again, provided they feel it too. Is it maybe a little forced or something? Yeah, sure. You could make arguments that it's problematic. The age gap thing is a little weird, especially since Rose is canon 19. She starts running around like it's a little, I guess. I mean...
It's like the vampire thing, right? It's like when you get past a certain ballpark, like, at what point can you just tell any stories?
Yeah, like, I only date other 300-year-olds.
This is why my favorite line from, like, What We Do in the Shadows is where he dates, the vampire Viagra dates the 90-year-old girl at the end, and he's like, yeah, the age gap's really different. They see me as a 900-year-old guy with a girl who's just out of the cradle, but I don't care. She's just like this old woman.
Yeah, exactly. It's just at a certain point, it gets, you just kind of get over it, especially because the actress is 100% not 19, so it's fine. It's one of those side benefits that we always play, like, we always end up picking, like, oh yeah, you're like 27, 28, you don't look like a teenager anymore, why don't we have you play a teenager? Just the like studio logic, I guess. I don't know. It's one of those things where if you're gonna put my back against the wall, I'll probably admit it's problematic, but I'll also say, wake me up inside. I do kind of dig it with Rose in particular, and I thought it was interesting that they played with it again with Martha. Like, oh, I guess he's just gonna fall in love with every companion now, and they, like, I think that it was a pretty good move on I can't remember the showrunner's name off the top.
Russell T Davies.
Yeah, Davies said. I thought it was a pretty interesting move on Davies' part to say to immediately address it, that they aren't gonna make it the Doctor falls deeply, madly in love with every companion he has. And I think Moffat was a little self-conscious of it too. Moffat obviously, just by the nature of what he wrote, was very much butting heads with Davies a lot of the time. So, like, immediately having Amy throw herself at the Doctor in her first episode, I think is a reaction to Rose as well. So I think it's interesting that they've distanced themselves from Rose, but in a way that's not insulting to that story in and of itself. And I do think it quite works. I quite like it for what it is, warts and all.
I think I will be interested to see, now that we've had female Doctor with Jodie, where they take that aspect. If we ever get that again, will it be another hetero relationship? Will we keep the fact that the Doctor's only into women? Like, I mean, that could be a funny thing. It's just like, oh, just the outside's changed. I wasn't gay before, I'm not gay now. Like, I guess I am gay now. Like, that could be a funny thing. Depending on how they handle it, I'd be curious to see. They seem to still be kind of going with the master dynamic in terms of that so far with New Who. Like, Missy was the closest we got to Capaldi having a love interest, and they seem to be keeping that with Jodie. So I don't know about that in companions terms. I'm most excited to see, and I'd be very curious to see if you classify her as this. Does River Song fit as a companion?
I mean, I'd certainly say so. It's a crime that we didn't get just a season of River Song and the Doctor together. We got close a bunch of times. There's probably enough episodes of them to generate a season, but
in chronological order as well.
Yeah, right. Like that's the fan edit I need to watch, I guess. I do like River Song as a companion. I think she's great. I like when they just break the mold and don't do present day Earth Girl. Those are almost all my favorite companions are the not just present day Earth Girl. Like, I like Donna and I like Martha from New Who, but just in concept they don't work as well as stuff like Leela or Romana 1 and 2. I love Romana. Romana was a great companion because it's just like, oh, the Doctor needs to be able to explain stuff, and to put the Doctor with another Time Lord who's like new at the game, a young 100-something, it's just such a fun fucking idea. And she's just there, and like she's like, Doctor, you're an idiot, and she solves the problem herself, and sometimes he has to explain just basic emotional stakes to her, which is really fun. I like that dynamic. It's fun to play with the stuff that breaks the mold too.
One of my favorite versions of that, which I think specifically something the Sixth Doctor needed on air, because a lot of people's criticism of him is that he's the one that comes the most off like a dick. Capaldi kind of has this too, but I think Capaldi acts it more in they actually talk about it in show with Capaldi, whereas with Sixth Doctor they still pretend that he's meant to be this nice guy, but he's just being an asshole. He had a companion in the audio dramas called Evelyn Smythe, who was like a 70-year-old librarian. And she was fucking the best because she was just so done with all this shit. And it was so great to have a character like that who, how like the basic conceit of the Doctor is like, oh, where do you want to go when they first bring them on? And like the companions kind of like, oh, I don't know. She was the one who's like had a list. She was like, here, I want to meet this historical figure, this or this. And it's great because they met Mary's Queens of Scots, and they go into like the historical background of stuff like that. It was just something fresh and something new that I feel like is important for that Doctor, because he was so aggressive and such a big personality that kind of stomped over his companions. Having someone who won't take that and will calm him down and isn't the child figure, is almost like a mother figure to him, makes that dynamic play a lot better. I think that's the thing to keep in mind with companions, is you want to play them off however you're trying to do the Doctor. So I feel like Tennant or Smith could have benefited from having an older companion, maybe someone who is to play off their looking physically so young and being so full of energy. Why the same way I think Bill is a much greater companion for Capaldi than Clara was, because it plays into more of like the grandfather dynamic, which I think suits Capaldi very well. All of that I feel like is important to keep, and I hope going forward we play that up a little bit more. What I'm curious, I guess, just because we didn't really touch on this, and it's my biggest issue with the latest series. Do you think there's New Who for the longest time just had single companions? What do you think are the strengths and weaknesses of having a group of companions?
I think you could do fun stuff with the group, but I think you end up like especially you end up showing the weaknesses of your imagination if you do a group wrong. Like I think the first, well, not the first, but like one of the early groups is, you know, you got modern day Earth Girl at the time, it was like the 60s. And then what's his name? Is it Jimmy? Isn't he like from, you know, old fashioned Scotland, like in the Middle Ages or some shit? Who am I thinking of? It's the second Doctor companion. I don't remember everything. Jamie, yeah. Isn't he like... Yeah, he's from 18th century Scotland. So, like, I think that's the really strong thing to go for if you're going to do a group companion is have... you can play it safe and have your, like, one modern day person. But then I think it's brilliant if you just start to really play with it and throw in weird companions on top of that. Which is something new Who has done a little bit. I haven't watched any of the stuff with 13 because I got really burnt out by the end of Capaldi's run. I don't know. Would you agree with that? Like, if they're all just like standard modern day Earth, it doesn't work as well as if you kind of make it weird and just throw a bunch of weird people together that probably shouldn't work.
I think that's exactly what my issue is. The biggest problem with this series has been that everyone's been so underserved because there's just not enough. It feels the most crowded the TARDIS ever been just in terms of screen time. And then the issue becomes is all of these characters got struggling for screen time and everyone's getting an arc and everyone's getting these bits and pieces. But if you do your version, at least we're going to different places and we're dealing with new and exciting things for each individual character. With this setup in the TARDIS, everyone's just dealing with modern day shit still. So it's just like, why are we watching Doctor Who right now when 3/4 of this entire group are people from England in modern day? And yes, there's different age ranges and different ethnicities and different backgrounds that we've got into some very, very topical stuff that I'm glad, because for God's sake, since Martha, it's been since we've had any fucking diversity in the TARDIS. So that's been about since Bill as well. But even then, it's been one of those things where we're dealing with that. But I feel that would be so much stronger if, say, instead of Graham is just the older fellow around here, you really want to sane that dynamic around. Get him to be from a time period where racism was very prevalent, and then you have to deal him with a progressive companion group. Like, how does that play out? That so much more instantly writes itself than, say, going to... I feel like Doctor Who works best when you take it to those extremes.
No, I definitely agree with that. I think that's a good place to end, is just the companions work well when they've got variety, when they're not just standard stick to formula. Because, like, I mean, they got so good at that so quickly, of just really understanding and recognizing the formula in New Who, to the point where, like, you have the unofficial 4th season of David Tennant, the specials, and it's just new companion every episode, and they're all just modern day Earth person, more or less. You know, and it's just, yeah, it just fits, just works, and he's off. And they introduce the companion in 5 minutes, and then they're just like every other companion he's ever had. That's what I need. Oh god, I wonder if anyone's done it. Probably not. The Doctor Who fan base is too lazy for this. I'm gonna have to look online and see if there's a collage of like every companion, at least on-screen companion, even if it's only like one episode.
I imagine that has to be at some point.
Well, you will know in the thumbnail, folks. Alrighty. Is there anything else you want to say before we wrap up on companions?
No, I've talked about everything from now. I guess I'll just throw this at you. We talked about different time periods. Are there any time periods that come to mind if you had to choose where the next companion comes from?
Oh, I definitely want to go I want more stuff just set in the past. I want like you know, fucking Pocahontas to be a companion. That's what I want. I want a person of actual historical note to be a companion.
You need to listen to the Mary Shelley Chronicles.
Oh, yeah?
She was the 8th Doctor's companion. It's fucking great.
That's cool. Yeah, I want a person of historical note from a history that is underserved. Particularly if that history has been stomped on by Britain, which gives you a lot to choose from.
We made a habit of that.
Yeah. It's like, don't brag too much, Alfie. Don't start saying you're welcome to people. Look, isn't this all going to be great? Look at all the art and the commentary you'll be able to make. Just all thanks to me and my people. Yeah. Anyway, so yeah, I want a companion of actual historical note, from some kind of, non-Western society. I'll broaden that out as much as I can. Have fucking Shahaka Zulu be a companion or some shit. Fucking Hannibal of Carthage to be a companion. That'd be the shit.
Yeah, I kind of want to go that way as well, but maybe like Jesus. Just like, what does that look like? How many people can we piss off with that?
Doctor, you can't sacrifice yourself. That's my job.
You've only got a couple more days left to live. You don't have to be here for that. Let's go around. That's how you do your fucking.
The doctor makes a clone of Jesus and puts him on the cross. It's like, see, I gotcha. They're gonna be so freaked out when you come out of the cave. It's gonna be amazing.
There we have it, folks.
Yeah. Alrighty. Who do I want to talk about next time? I've been kind of thinking on this character, and I'm not sure how much of a character she has, but it should be interesting to kind of delve into. I want to talk about Giganta.
Okay.
Yeah. Because, I don't know, I've been thinking about her, and I was trying to find, like, lists online and stuff, and just, I don't know, there should be some interesting topic in there. Alright, everyone, thanks very much for watching. Until next time, I'm Philosopher.
And I am the champion of the oppressed.
And we are your geeky gentlemen, and we will be discussing things.